Hello everyone, welcome back to the another lecture. So in this lecture I'm going to talk with you all is idealism, and idealism is also known by utopian liberalism, and it is the early study or first approach to the international relation. So that's why it is the first traditional theory of international relations. So while talking about the establishment of the international relation as a separate academic subject, it was only emerged out of First World War. So why First World War? Because the experience of the First World War was very devastating and catastrophic in nature, with the millions of people have lost their life, and they do not want to repeat such kind of catastrophic war in future. And again, there are millions of questions has been also raises. First, like why war began in the first place, and why countries fight with no absolute gain. So countries like Germany, France, Italy, why they have involved in the First World War without any absolute gain. Either you are the loser or the winner, so you have to face the consequence of the war. So in order to answer these questions, like first, new discipline of international relation has been came up with new ideas. So these ideas were profoundly influenced by the liberal ideas, and the liberal idea theory was the first dominant theory who tried to answer all these questions, and they have presented the reasons behind the war. And in order to answer these questions, so they have also given some kind of reasons why First World War was occurred. And according to the liberal theory, so the First World War was occurred because of the autocratic leaders. So autocratic leaders were basically driven by their pursuit, self-interest, egoistic interest, short-sighted, and in order to fulfill their interest, they can adopt any means, and either they can go for war. And because they were not democratically elected by the people, and they do not concern about the public opinion, and no democracy can restrain them. So take the example of leader of North Korea. So the leader of the North Korea is the autocratic leader, and in order to fulfill the interest, he can either adopt any means, or either he can go for war. So because of the nature of the autocratic leaders, the First World War was occurred, countries go for the war. And second reason, liberal idea theory was presented because of the alliance system. First World War was occurred, okay, countries go for war. Because of the alliance system, the whole European countries involved in the war. So how whole European countries involved in the First World War? So first, Archduke, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the heir of the Austro-Hungary, and he was assassinated by the Serbian nationalists. So when he was assassinated by the Serbian nationalist, Austro-Hungary declared war against Serbia. So as a consequence of that, Serbia was aligned with Russia. At the same time, Russia was also aligned with France. And on the other hand, Austria-Hungary was aligned with Germany, and Germany feared war on two fronts with France and Russia, and Germany attacked France for the speedy of victory. For the speedy victory, Germany attacked France. So Germany attacked through the Belgium. It also brought British into the war as a Belgium's ally. So when Germany attacked the France, Germany attacked through the Belgium, and that also brought British into the war as a Belgium's ally. So that's how the alliance system was involved in the First World War. So here comes the questions like liberal idea theory have given presented that because of the autocratic leader, countries go for war, but on the other hand, democratic countries are also involved in the war. So how this democratic involved in the war? Because of the alliance system. And in this context, like liberal idea theory gives a kind of solution that how do we avoid war. So we can avoid the war by reforming international system. Then how do we reform international system? We can reform international system by framing institutions, or by setting some kinds of rules and regulations, so that can also regulate the behavior of the state. So before the First World War, there was no any kind of international institutions so that can regulate the behavior of the states, or they can cooperate the with each other, or through that means they can avoid the war. Okay, so second solution which has been given by the liberal theory is that by reforming the domestic structure of the autocratic countries. By reforming the domestic structure of the autocratic countries means if the autocratic countries bring some kind of reformation in the domestic structure, or they can adopt the democratic system, then we can also avoid the war. Because liberal idea theory has been derived its idea from the liberalism, and liberalism basically focuses on the human beings are rational, and if they apply reason to the international systems, then we can also achieve cooperation in the international level. So this idea has been presented or articulated by the two liberal thinkers of international relations. So first one is Woodrow Wilson and Norman Angell. So Woodrow Wilson was the 28th president of the United States, and he was also professor of the political science, and he formulated 14 points, and that's why he also awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919, and his 14 points influenced the Paris Peace Conference. Okay, so Paris Peace Conference was an international meeting convened in 1919 after the First World War, and in this conference most of the countries were joined. Okay, among them Great Britain, France, United States and Italy. They were known as big four. So they have met in the Paris Peace Conference in order to establish the peace, or in order, as a consequence of that, Treaty of Versailles was also signed after the Paris Peace Conferences. And his two main ideas, so first ideas is that promotion of democracy and self-determination. So though he derived his idea from the liberalism, and that's why he gave more emphasis to the promotion of democracy and self-determination, because democratic government do not and will not go to war against each other. So according to the liberal theory, democratic countries do not go for war. Okay, so if all the countries, all the autocratic countries, if they adopt the policy of democracy, or they give some kind of self determination, then we can avoid the war. Okay, so we can adopt peace in the future, so we can achieve peace in the future. So second most important ideas which has been presented by the Woodrow Wilson is that creation of an international organization. So before the First World War, there was no any international organization or any institutions which can regulate the behavior of the countries. Okay, so they can cooperate with each other. So if we create some kind of international organization, so that country can cooperate, or they manage, or they interact with each other, and then we can avoid war in the future. So that's why it led to the formation of the League of Nations, and the main philosophy of the or principle of the League of Nations was the collective security. So before this international organization or the First World War, countries were involved in the secret diplomacy, and they also involved in the balance of power. So this secret diplomacy and the balance of power led to the war. Okay, so that's why we want this kind of international organization, so that can regulate the behavior of the state in the international system. So another most important legal theory is your Norman Angell. So he published a book in 1909, The Great Illusion. Okay, so war is an illusion. So illusion is that many state people still believe that war serves profitable purposes, that success in war is beneficial for winners. Okay, so if you success in the war, then you it is beneficial for the winners. But what he argues is that it is not the one. Okay, it is exactly the opposite. So whether you are a loser or whether you are a winner, you have to face the consequence of the war. And in the modern times, so territorial conquest is disadvantages. So earlier times what happened was that countries in always conquest for the territory. So now it has been changed. So countries are basically focusing on the economic interdependence for the markets. Okay, so economic when you involve in the economic interdependence or market, so it can also lead to the what economic cooperation. So when you involve in the economic cooperation, you cannot go for war. So that is how, like, Norman Angell have argued, like economic interdependence brings some kind of peace and we can avoid wars, because war and the use of force became of decreasing importance, and international law develops in response to the need for framework to regulate high levels of interdependence. So in sum, modernization and interdependence involve a process of change and progress which helps to avoid war and the use of force. So because if the country involved in the economic activities, so we can avoid the wars according to the Norman Angell. So coming back to the liberal theory and the 1920s, so thinking of Wilson and Angell is based on the liberal view, and according to the liberalism or liberal theories, human being are rational, and if we apply this international relations, we can bring some kind of peace in the international system. So this kind of idea was got some success in 1920s, in the 1920s, because of the formation of the League of Nations. So League of Nations was formed in 1919, and it was like indeed established, and the great powers took some further steps to assure each other for the peaceful intentions. So, because of the formation of the League of Nations, so countries can most of many countries are like they have adopted the policy of peaceful intentions, again like the brilliant Gallup Pact of 1928, so which was practically all the countries were signed. So the main idea or objective of the pact was like international agreement to abolish war. So how to abolish the war? So um, this objective was also signed in the Gallo-Briand Pact of 1928. And in short, like liberal ideas dominated in the first phase of academic of IR, the international relations of the 1920s. These ideas could claim some success. Okay, till 1920s, okay, this idea got some success. But if we go back to the coming back to the liberal idealism of 1930s to 40s, so this liberal idealism was known by utopian liberalism or idealism, because whatever the idea which has been presented by the liberal idea theory, it was only possible in the utopian. Okay, it is impractical, it is not applicable in the real world, because the event which were taking place in the 1930s and 50s, so this liberal approach was not able to explain all those events. Okay, so that's why the idea which was presented by the liberal idealism, liberal idea theory, was based on the utopian liberalism or idealism. Why? How? Because like Wilson's hope for spread of democracy shattered. So Wilson's have like give more emphasis to the democracy. Okay, so if the country adopt the democratic policy, then we can avoid war. But most of the countries like in the European countries, they have started to adopt dictatorship and the authoritarianism. For example, fascist in Italy, Nazism in Germany. Okay, so authoritarianism also increased in many new states of the Central and the Eastern Europe. For example, Poland, Hungary, Romania, and Yugoslavia. So they have started to adopt the authoritarianism. On the other hand, extremely weak League of Nations. So League of Nations was formed in 1919, but it it faces like some of the weaknesses. Okay, it cannot become the strong international organization. Why? Because Germany and France failed to sign the Treaty of Versailles initially, and their relationship to the League of Nations was always strained. Russia joined in 1934 and was expelled in 1940 because of the war with Finland. Germany joined the League in 1926 but left in early 1930s. Japan also left in 1930 after the war in Manchuria. Britain and France were not serious. USA never joined because USA always followed the isolationism policy, foreign policy. So because of the weak character of the League of Nations, so League of Nations become failed, and it finally led to the Second World War. On the other hand, economic depression of 1929. So the idea which has been given by the Norman Angles, like economic interdependence in the modern period. Okay, so countries can economically depend with each other, then we can avoid the war in the modern period. So it was also became uh, superficial idea. How? Because we have seen the economic depression of 1929 in the western countries, and it led to the severe economic crisis in the western countries, and countries started to adopt the economic protectionism. So protectionism means like countries were only focusing on the domestic market, so countries were not trading with the other countries. So countries were started to follow the protectionism, so that does not lead to the economic interdependence. And that's why the idea which has been also given by the Norman Angle was failed to it is not applicable to applicable in the period of 1930s and 50s. Okay, so it is not this approach is not able to explain the events which were taking place in 1930s and 50s. So that's why they are known as a utopian liberalism or idealism, and their ideas were heavily criticized by the realist thinker. And the realist thinker like E.H. Carr and Hans Morgan, they have heavily criticized the liberal idea theory, and they have given them as a idealist or utopian liberalism. Why? Because the idea which has been given by the liberal theorists like Woodrow Wilson and the Norman Angell, so ideas which is not able to explain the events which were taking place in 1930s and 50s because of the Second World War. Okay, so they were heavily criticized, so that's why they are known as a idealist thinker. So this is all about the idealism. Thank you so much.